installed it.
Huh?
It just installed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Hit continue. Where's your phone?
It's on the other side.
Just want to see what it looks like still over there. I started it again, but
It
okay.
hasn't. I don't see anything yet, but I have to press the. Yeah, it's on.
I know, but did it kick everybody out?
I don't think so. I can't tell, honestly.
Oh.
I am.
No,
looking
well,
at
it says there's two. It says two people, so I'm gonna go with it kicked everybody out.
It might have, yes. Oh, Jedi's still here. Yay! Good job. He signed back in on his phone, but I don't know if you sign in on there if it's gonna kick you off your phone, right?
No, it shouldn't kick me off unless I actually try to start the stream.
Okay.
Which right now I'm just trying to install the damn thing and get it set up. Doing all this CAPTCHA stuff to make sure I'm not a robot. Oh my gosh, seriously? How many of these picture things is it gonna make me do?
Intermission. I wish I had a graphic of a dancing hot dog or something for people to watch.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Right?
Right?
Go get a snack.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
God, we're old.
What?
Holy crap. Like, it made me do like a dozen of these.
For real?
Yeah, and not...
Is it because you keep trying to log in from different devices?
I don't know. It made me do like a dozen of... So I put in the code from the email, and then it made me do like a dozen CAPTCHA things, and then it asked me to put in the code again. How many can I
It
get?
really wants to know that you're you.
Crap. But then I got an email saying successfully logged in, even though I'm not logged in yet, because it's still asking me for a damn code. Okay, well at least it gave me the same code again, I guess. That's good? I don't know. Okay, logged in. Get started.
Is it making you set it up again?
Huh? Oh, that's right. I was using this before. Yes, it's making me set it all up again, so I'm not going to do this right now.
Okay. Well, bugger.
It's okay. Like, I was planning on getting this ready for tomorrow anyway, so. Let's see. So we have this webcam, which is that one. And that cam, which is that one. Cool. Yeah, no, it reset everything on here for some reason, so I'll get that ready for tomorrow. Anyway, we'll be here on this one instead. So, clear coded it. Yeah, I'm picking right up where I left off. Clear coded it, ruined the paint, right? Even though it was exactly the same as the first time and it was perfect. So it's still sitting over there. I need to sand it all down again and repaint it. So that's that part, right? So that's sitting over there waiting for me to do it again. So it's like, okay, we're gonna take the other parts while I'm waiting for this one to like redo this one, put them in a different safe place. So I put them in a safe place. Yesterday, I'm walking into our bed, and the safe place was in our bedroom because like nobody else goes in there except for us, right? Perfectly safe. We hardly ever do anything in our bedroom except for sleep and like watch TV. That's about it, right? Perfectly safe in there. So I'm walking out in our bedroom, and all of a sudden, I hear all this crashing, and the cat comes hauling ass out of our bedroom. I go in there. Somehow, she managed to knock down the stuff that was in a safe place, behind the bookshelf, then knock all the stuff off of the bookshelf, some of which fell on top of the stuff that had fallen off of the safe place. And now I have more work to do. So
It's
yeah.
like-
So sometimes there are projects that are just cursed.
It's like one of those laugh cry moments.
Yeah.
You don't know whether to fucking scream or just be like,
And you're just like, okay, moving on. Next. Next. Ugh. Yeah, I just realized this has this little lip on here I need to fix. Somehow I didn't notice it before.
I'm gonna go do stuff for real now.
You're gonna go do stuff? Cool.
Yeah, I'll stay on the chat, but I can't hear you. So.
That's fine. Can you can you grab me the patch?
Oh, yes.
It should be
And
all.
your lid.
Oh yeah, the lid. So, for you folks here, you get a sneak preview of something new that we're doing. It's not a secret. It just we're waiting until we're ready to like put it out there fully. But you get to get in on the action early because you have blessed us with your presence. As soon as she gets back, I'll show you. She's gonna bring it down here. It's something we've been wanting to do for a really long time. And we so we had lots of plans for this year. I'm sure like everybody else on the planet that got completely sidetracked and railroaded. Oh, before I get to that though, so this is my coffee cup lid that I modeled and 3D printed. This is for the shop. Obviously it still has a hole in it, so stuff can still get in it, but it's a dome shape so that it could fit on pretty much any size coffee mug. This is a pretty big coffee mug, but it fits on here. And so it can still vent like for hot drinks because you try to cut down on the condensation buildup, but it does a lot better job of keeping stuff out of your drink and everything and keeping it warm. And then the other thing I did is it has these little grooves in it. This is the prototype, so you know it's not perfect, but it has these little grooves so that if it does build up any condensation, in theory, it'll collect in those grooves, and then if you look at right, since they all hang over the edge of the mug, then the condensation can drip off and out and not back into your drink. Huh? I've been 3D printing for like years now, and this is like the third like actual practical real world thing I've made. Like a lot of people get into 3D printing because they want to make stuff like that they can use around the house or whatever. But like, I don't know, I just never did. But this is like, it works. Okay, so one of the things that we have been wanting to do that was on our radar for this year was being able to make patches. I have a handful of designs that I had conceptually came up with and ideas that I came up with that have just been sitting in the back of my mind because we've wanted to get an embroidery machine so we can make patches, and it was one of our things that we were planning on buying earlier this year, because at the beginning of the year things were going great. And, you know, we had all these cons lined up and appearances. And for us, especially, cons are how we network and get business, right? So, again, like so many people, business tanked. And so we put a bunch of plans on hold. But we got one of those. As soon as like all the what the heck is I can't remember what the program is called, but there was like the government grant thing that was like up to $10,000, but it's $1,000 per employee, and we don't have employees. But we applied, you know, and so we just recently actually got the grant. So we bought the embroidery machine, and so this is our first patch that we're going to release. This is actually the very first one that is fully functional. And this is the sticky stuff, like the iron-on stuff that's on the back. I just put it on earlier today, so I have to trim this, and then this will be an iron-on patch of Phoenix Squadron. Speaking of my love of Star Wars Rebels. So we're going to have these Phoenix Squadron patches up soon for ordering. And then we have some other designs that I'm working on designing and digitizing stuff to put in our shop, but also, assuming that I figured this out pretty decently, we can do patches for other people, digitize designs or design stuff for people that want patches. So if you know anybody who might want patches, and you know, even if it's like a one-off thing, whatever, I'm going to this will shock you. The first like 3 or 4 patches that I have that I'm designing are all Star Wars Rebels ones. So, and then we're also gonna, I have that set, and then we're also gonna do our studio logo as a patch. And the nice thing with having the embroidery is because then we can embroider on stuff ourselves versus having to pay other people to do it, which is what we did on some of our other stuff. But yeah, so we'll be able to embroider on anything, and then also make patches that we can sell or give away at cons whenever those happen again. But yeah, so patches are going to be a thing that we do. And I'm really happy with the way this came out. It took a while to figure it out and dial it in, but I think now that I've figured it out, going forward, it'll be easier to do patches. One thing that is crazy to me, and this is not specifically, this isn't about embroidery, this is about software, but it's related, I promise. So a lot of people know that before I started doing this full time, I was in IT and software. I've been in IT pretty much my whole life. And my first real job was in photography. My second real job was in IT, and then that's all I've done since then is IT. And the software that I worked on is like web-based and like was always like cutting edge technology and everything. And so it's really weird. There's a ton of software out there for digitizing and creating embroidery and stuff. And it is amazing how shitty it is. I mean, I'm not going to mince any words here. It is all such like outdated and like clunky and expensive on top of it, because it's such a limited market, I guess. And all this software is based on, goes back to what works with, part of it is trying to figure out something that will work cross machine, because of course every brand has their own proprietary file formats that work with their machine. And so the software, you use the software to make your designs, but then you have to export it properly for the, hey Avatar, properly for the machine you're using. So it's like, you have to find software that can export to your machine. Then you have to, and then a lot of the software too has like, it's like they tier all their software. So it's like, most of them have between 3 and 4 levels, and then like each level has like what features you want. So it depends on what you're going to be doing with your embroidery. If you're going to be doing like a bunch of like normal type embroidery, you can go with a lot of the lower end packages or whatever. But if you're doing more complicated stuff, this isn't that complicated, but I already had this design, so to go from my design to the stitching without redoing everything in the stitching software, I had to go up like to the third level of the software that we're trying out. And we tried out a bunch of software, and just some of the stuff like blows my mind, especially coming from a software background. Like a lot of the software requires you to have a USB dongle for the software to work. Like I haven't used software that needed something like that in ages. And so you can't get a trial of some of the software because you have to buy it from a reseller, which is usually a sewing shop. So you have to go buy the software from a sewing shop, and you get a dongle that's basically like a security key, right? So the software won't load unless it's plugged into your USB port on your computer, right? Like there are tons of companies that have figured licensing out that don't require an extra piece of hardware, right? So there's just all these levels to it, and like some of them are, like I said, I probably downloaded 5 different ones, trying to figure out which ones would work for what we needed, which ones are easy to use, and like there's only, of all the ones I tried, there's only one that is pretty decent and doesn't require a dongle, has lots of features, is fairly up to date feeling. Like most of them feel though like some like software out of like the 90s. Like and these are modern software, but they look and feel like I'm using something that is from like Windows 3.11 or something. It's just and they're like, and some, it's like you look at it and it's like this software looks like somebody wrote it 20 years ago, and you are saying it's $1,500. No, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, enough ranting about embroidery software. But now I understand why like there's such a barrier to entry for embroidery and like doing patches and stuff at a home user level, because the software is just anyway. So once again, there's the Phoenix Squadron patch that I have somewhat perfected. I mean, I think it came out pretty good. The next design that I'm almost done with, and then as far as the actual design, and then I have to do the digitizing though. The next one is going to be Kanan mask. So it's just like the Kanan mask with the J guys on it and everything. And then I have some other ones that I'm working on. One of the patches I'm doing isn't one that we're going to be selling, but I'm going to be giving away some of them to people. And I will definitely get one to you, Hudson, for sure. Yeah. Oh, this is fun. I want to show you guys this. So, one of the commissions we're doing is Sister Night from the Watchmen, HBO Watchmen series, which we haven't actually watched yet because we don't have HBO. I literally got the Blu-ray. It showed up on like day 2 of the protests, and I was like, I can't watch this right now, because that, like, the first few days of the protest, that was when I was literally like, I was up till like 3-4 in the morning on Twitter, Facebook, just reading everything, sharing stuff, just everything. And then like had to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning with the kids, and that was like for a week. Like I slept as much that week as like I normally do in like a couple of days. I was like, no, I can't watch this right now. Like I don't have the capacity to watch Watchmen, knowing what it's about and everything else. And so we haven't watched it yet, but we're doing the Sister Night commission for somebody. And part of the commission is she has her rosary that's not a typical standard rosary. And so and there's not a whole lot of good pictures of her props. Her props are basically her rosary and her badge. So, and there's like one good picture of each thing that I could find. And so I was like racking my brain looking at the cross on her rosary, trying to figure out what the heck it was. And it's really weird looking in that, so on part of the cross, it has this little medallion, and I know zero about Catholicism, right? So I used my Google Foo to figure out that this was Saint Benedict medallion, right? So I was like, okay, that's a starting point. I could probably get a medallion, or like now that I know what it is, I can 3D model it and print it or whatever. I was like, but then I have to do the whole rest of the cross. And like the cross that she has these, on her rosary, it has these little, the crossbar there is like that. It has the little scroll on the top, but hers is like this. It comes to a point, and it has these 3 little dots on it, and no Jesus. So I was like, oh, well, I'm sure I can find a Saint Benedict cross that doesn't have Jesus on it, that we can use, like, you know, we can modify it or whatever. So searching, and I found this one, which, with the exception of Jesus and the exception of the bottom, is identical to the one used in the show. So I was like, okay, well, I'll get that and, you know, see how we can maybe modify it. And so I got it, and I was like, okay, well, I'm sure it wouldn't be very hard to get this. And I literally barely pulled on it, and Jesus came right off. And surprise, the 3 little dots on hers are already there. They are exactly the same. So that's when I realized that they literally used this exact same one and just ripped Jesus off, and it's the exact same cross. The only difference now is the bottom. And in looking closer at the picture of the reference, you can actually tell that they just ground this into a point. So that's why it's out here in the garage, because I'm going to use the mini sander I was talking about and turn that into a point, and then it's done. And this was $6 for this on Amazon. So yeah, so you never know what you're going to find that will actually work out and be perfect. Yeah, I was like, oh, those are the circles where they mount Jesus on the cross. Cool. Yeah, so that is for Sister Night. I am doing fine. As well, as fine as can be. I am tired, but other than that, today is okay. Like I was saying earlier, though, I think part of that is because I am streaming with my phone, so I can't be looking at anything else on my phone, which is probably the main reason why I'm usually not okay. It's really hard to, I'm sure everybody is feeling this, but it's just really hard lately to put down your phone and just walk away. I know it's important to take breaks for our mental health and stuff, but you know, there's like, every time I was talking to my therapist about this the other day, because she, you know, I was talking to her and I was like, because one of the things that we talk about a lot is with my ADHD, like being able to focus and actually work. And I was talking to her about how, like, I come out here to work and I'm just like, you know, this stuff is cool, but it's not as important as people fucking getting murdered in the streets, you know? And so it's like, it's really hard to be like, you know what? I should be paying more attention and doing more and not doing this stuff. And so it's really hard to put stuff down, or, you know, to not put stuff down and pick up your phone and look, because you want to pay attention and watch and like be vigilant, and you know, it's really easy to ignore it if you want. For me, I mean, for me personally, I don't experience any of it, right? So I have the privilege to ignore it if I want. It would be easy for me to ignore it for myself. And so that's another part of it, right? Like, 'cause like I tell myself, okay, you need to just put it down and walk away, for your own like mental health. But then the second I do, like, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, but that's like, I can do that because I have, my privilege lets me do that. Like, there are people who don't have that ability, who don't have that luxury. And so there's like that constant struggle of, I should be doing more, I need to do more. Yeah. It's rough out there. And yeah. So how are you all doing? But like I said, you know, I said this earlier, but most people, I don't think anybody was really on then, but, you know, one of the things that we're trying to do is, you know, we only have so much ability to like donate and get out on the streets and protest. You know, with a bunch of kids, we can't, like, hey, you guys all just stay home and hang out, we're gonna go protest. And, you know, we're at the point where it doesn't matter who you are. If you're out on the street, you have a pretty good chance of getting gassed or a rubber bullet in the fucking eye. And, you know, when the protest started, I was like, okay, cool. The next time the kids are at their mom's house, I'm gonna go out there. And then, you know, seeing all the violence, not just against the protesters, but medics and press. And it's like, nobody is safe. Doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing. You know, little girl walking down the street getting pepper sprayed by cops. Like, it literally doesn't matter. And again, this is part of my privilege, but like, it was, you know, it's like, okay, I can go down there, but if something happens to me, then what about my kids, right? And so, you know, we decided that, especially when stuff started getting even worse, that we weren't gonna like go out and do the protesting stuff, because we have a responsibility to our kids outside of like ourselves. And so, okay, so we're gonna help in other ways. And so, you know, we also don't have a ton of money to donate. We did donate some money, but even that's hard. And so, you know, the two things that we have outside of that is we have the platform that we have. It's not huge, but we have some. And, you know, people say that they can't make a difference. They feel like they can't make a difference. But if you don't try to use your voice, you'll never know for sure. And, you know, I posted about this, but Plaid Crafts is a company that we're a brand ambassador for. You know, they're basically, we consider that a business partner. And, you know, they have 150-ish ambassadors, and there's a private Facebook group for all of the ambassadors. There's 150 people, and you know, just at a glance, looking at profile pictures, so obviously that's not necessarily indicative, and you can't tell from just a profile picture someone's entire history, but at a glance, out of 150 people, I counted 4 people who are obviously black. And looking at their feed, they're, you know, they always share work from people who tag them. That's one of the things they do. You tag them, they reshare your work. And, you know, looking through the history of the stuff they shared, there's almost no black creators and makers that they shared. And then they had like 2 weeks of online streaming because of like with cosplayers and makers, because, you know, cons are canceled and everything. And they paused for one day, on the Tuesday that like everybody kind of paused stuff, but I didn't even notice they paused, because it must have been like in their story or whatever, and they didn't like say anything about their streaming schedule. They hadn't said anything about any of the protests going on, and not a single one of, so they did a stream every day for 2 weeks, and not a single one of those people were a black cosplayer or maker. And it's like, we all know that there are an overwhelming number of black cosplayers that could have done that easily. And, you know, it wasn't even about reach or following, because there's plenty of Black cosplayers out there that have just as much reach or following as, or more than some of the people that were on that list. And so, you know, I was seeing all these things, and then they were doing an online costume contest, again, because, you know, there's not any real things. And we had submitted to the contest when they had first published it, and it was, you know, like a month or so ago. And it was like the Friday, I think, of like the first week of protests. They were like, okay, we're starting the contest. And one of the things we didn't know, like, we stay away from like the contests that are like, oh, everybody vote, and like that's how they choose winners, because I'm not into the popularity contests. Like, that's not really a contest, right? So we didn't know it was that kind of contest, which whatever is fine. But so they did it as like brackets basically, and like the first round of 10 cosplayers was and we were included in it. There were 9 of us and 1 Black cosplayer who they used as like the face of like, hey, we're launching our contest. So, you know, we're looking at all of this, and it's like, so you haven't said anything, you haven't really changed anything, you hardly ever represent Black cosplayers, and then you use the sole Black cosplayer in your whole contest as like to announce your contest because it's the week of the protests. And, you know, our initial reaction was, fuck them, we're not gonna use their shit anymore. Like, and we have a lot of stuff from them, so we're like, you know, we're just gonna, like, you know, we just want to throw all this shit away, not use it, and burn it to the ground, right? And so that was our initial reaction, and I was like, okay, you know what, let's like wait a day, let's like just think about it, let's not like react right away. And I wrote up I was gonna send an email, basically outlining everything that I just said and saying, hey, you know, we need to know your position on this. We need to know what you're gonna do to do better in the future, or we're not gonna be able to work with you anymore. And then I thought, if I send this email, they might respond, or they might just say, fuck you, and ignore us, right? So what I did instead is I took the email that I had written and I posted it in the group, and I addressed it to not only the company, but all the ambassadors in the group. And like, you know, who knows if they're gonna respond or not. And so the actual CEO of the company came to the group and responded to me. Cool. And, you know, he apologized. I'm not going to say it was the best apology for what I called him out on ever. And it was borderline an all lives matter kind of response. But if you look at their content and the majority of the people, I mean, if you look at them historically, right, Plaid Crafts is like Hobby Lobby, Michael's craft stuff. So a majority of their users are, as you would expect, older white people. So I didn't expect a whole lot, but they did apologize. They promised to do better. They asked all the ambassadors for help in getting more representation in the ambassador program. And, you know, I was like, okay, that's kind of a lukewarm response, but they responded and they said they're going to do something. And I figured we'll see what happens, right? And then 2 days later, they actually made a public post on their Instagram saying, you know, more succinctly than what they had explained in the group, but basically reiterating the same stuff they had told us. And in addition, promising to donate more supplies to schools and areas in need. And so, you know, you never know what impact your voice and your activism is going to have, even if you feel like you don't have one. I mean, as a company, like, we have like 800 followers on Instagram. Like, they could have just ignored us and been like, fuck you guys. And, you know, because I feel like their response was kind of lukewarm, like, it's one of those things where, like, I got my eye on you. I'm watching to make sure you actually follow through on this shit. And they have in the past, so that was like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. And since then, they've actually done a lot more sharing of Black and POC cosplayers than they have historically, which is great. I'm gonna make sure I pay attention to make sure that's not just like okay, we did this and now that everything's quieting down, let's go back to business as usual. Yeah, anyway, that was a long rambly thing just to say, use your voice when you can, even if you think it won't make a difference, because you never know when it will. I haven't posted about this yet, but I posted, like, I've been sharing all kinds of stuff, obviously, for anybody who sees any of my social media, but I posted something about Chaz before they changed it. Now it's Chop, but I posted something about it, and most of my stuff that I've been posting about this is public because, the more people that see it and share it, great. And some dude came into the comments and, said something about terrorists and Antifa and, well, all the shit that we've all heard a million times. And so I look at his profile picture and he has this shirt that says, Proud Redneck, and it has that flag. You know what I'm talking about. And so, again, my initial reaction was to fucking drag his ass. And, other people jumped in too because it was like, dude, fuck you. So we were, arguing with this dude, and, he was calling other people that were commenting. He was, like, everybody else was, at least initially, trying to, like, argue about, like, what was actually going on or whatever. And he's calling everybody names, and so finally I was like, okay, listen up, you redneck. And again, that's what he called himself. So I wasn't, I was just, and I used all of the names and the slurs that he had called everybody else and, like, chained them all together. I was like, you clearly don't care and don't want to learn and everything else. And, I